I'm going to just make sure you all understand that. So Brene Brown wrote this book trying to have meaningful connection. It's what she wanted to have from the beginning of her first work 15 years ago. Her dissertation, in fact, was on connection. And she realized that the biggest thing that was missing was this whole piece about emotions. And when she tried to have, go to research and use the experts on emotions, there was a lot of disagreement even among them. And so she was brave, she had courage, and she tackled this subject. So it's a wonderful thing. So that's sort of the intro about the book. And I wanted to tell you about myself just for a minute, that my name is Allison Livingston. I am a mom of 2 daughters in California. And I started all this work because my oldest daughter was a strong-willed child. She was spirited, defiant, she would push back, and every time I turned around, she would have a huge emotion. And it was triggering to me because I wasn't taught how to do emotions. And in fact, I was taught to suppress them, numb them. I put on armor with the best of them. And then when my second daughter came along, there was all this sibling rivalry and they were fighting at each other. And I would try to get in the middle and bring peace. And it was hard. And so I learned about emotions and about what emotions are trying to connect us with. And that is our values, our needs. And so often we live, at least I was, from the head up. I would try to think my way through everything. I would try to be productive. I would try to manage. And that's important. That's a skill set too. We need our intellect, but we also need, as Brene Brown talks about, our heart, our emotions. And our emotions are felt in our bodies. So we need our body wisdom and what's happening in our values, which I think of it are in our gut. So we need all of these things. And that was the way I learned. And I want to share that with you because it turned our really challenging family dynamics into something that I'm really proud of, that I don't get as triggered, that I'm able to work with my reactions. I don't dump them on my children with blame and yelling like I used to. And so I want to share this with you because if I had learned this sooner, I would have just been that much happier. So I want us to have a discussion. I'm going to learn from you. You're going to learn from each other. And again, this is going to be very experiential, except for the first couple of slides. So I'd love questions. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat at any time. You can also raise your hand. Just as a sort of housekeeping thing, I love interaction and I love when you have a yeah, but. So if you ever kind of go, yeah, but that's not really my experience, I'd love you to voice that because someone else in the group probably is. And that's how we know we're really integrating and grappling with the information. So I'm so glad you chose to be here. Thank you for all who are going to watch after on the recording. One last thing, we are always in choice. So often we try to be PC, we have all our masks on, we try to do the right thing, we have all these filters. Well, here I want us to create a safe place where we get to be real and we get to just check in. And there's my daughter. I'm going to, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. This is embarrassing. Sorry for that. That was not what I needed to do. And now I'm having this moment of embarrassment and I'm having this moment of trying to figure this out. So hold on one sec. I'm going to stop. I'm going to have my sharing screen. I don't know how to get back to share screen. Does anyone know? Here, I'm going to go. Let's see. Any tech out there know what to do to get the screen back up?
I see your screen.
I still see the screen.
You see the screen, but do you have the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
The first, front
The first slide's up.
Oh, great. Well, I'm so glad because it went away for me. That is so confusing.
It's there, Allison. It's
okay,
there.
Well, good. Well, I'm going to keep going. And Tanya, I'm going to have you move the slides then. Okay, that is so
I won't be able to move the slides because it's from your screen.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna do. It says my screen sharing has paused. Oh, well, okay. The problem is I don't know how to move my own slides. So sorry to interrupt us like this. I'm gonna stop the share and then I'm gonna start it again and just see if that works. And then here we go. Okay, it's back. Sorry for that interruption. Our kids calling us. So my kids are older now and they like to FaceTime me. Okay, so I'm gonna take a breath, get back to my grounded center, and let's just move on. But I was saying that we want a safe space and that we can be raw and real today. This is a place to practice vulnerability. So let's go on to the next. So jump into why emotions matter. So if this is your experience, you can put it in the chat. People, myself, will do almost anything not to feel uncomfortable emotions. So right now, I'm just going to explain what's going on because this is what we're going to get to in the next slide in our exercise. I have this heat flowing through my body. I am feeling this, it's a little bit of ashamed, like, oh my gosh, I somehow messed up. It's a little bit of embarrassment. And I don't want to feel any of that. So I want to distract myself. I want to just pretend everything's okay. I want to overdo. I want to just be extra competent so that you still trust me. All this stuff is coming up. And this is our sort of normal reaction to when things don't go as we want, as things don't go as planned. So most of us have these armor things that come up and they block us from feeling our feelings because it is uncomfortable to feel this wash of heat or a heart rate going really fast. What happens is that our system is trying to prevent us from feeling physical pain. This limbic system that was developed millions of years ago, I'm sure you've all heard about it, is for physical discomfort, physical threat. And it also works, unfortunately, with emotional threat. So when we feel afraid, when we feel anger, when we feel these things, we try to stop it. We try to hold it down because it's uncomfortable. And when our kids feel it, I don't know if this is the case for you, but it's even more uncomfortable. And so I want to distract them. I want to minimize it. I want to make them feel better. But they're important because they're telling us about our values. They're telling us about what really matters. And so when we don't understand, when we just try to stop and we put on our armor that is almost unconscious, it's so fast, it breaks the system, it breaks the cycle. And we become disconnected from ourselves and we become disconnected from our children, each other. We just have this sort of transactional way of living. So how do emotions work? This is the thing that Brene is telling us about in this book. And the first part is what we're going to focus on the most, which is biology. Because I didn't realize that emotions are experienced in my body, that those physical sensations are clues, they're a compass. And they changed my life when I started tuning in. And it's not easy, so we're going to do an exercise next. It's also how the connection between our feelings, our thoughts, and our behavior and the interactions. And so that's why she's written her book about how to work with comparison, how to work with judgment, how to work with all these human experiences that interact and bring up emotions. The challenge is that we get in our heads and we stop having this full experience, which involves our head as well as our heart, our bodies, and our values. And so that's her big concept of wholehearted living. How do we go from our thinking, which is where most of us, myself anyway, spent 90% of my time, to a more wholehearted experience? And then these patterns, these protective patterns, which she calls armor. How do we, like blaming, judging, numbing, how do we just really loosen those so that we can reconnect? Because too often we just build these walls to be safe, to protect ourselves. And we needed these, we thought, when we were young, but now they're so strong, we can't get down. We can't think our way to our hearts. And so for me, it was a 15-year journey to reclaim what I learned and knew when I was born, and what our kids are so adept at. You probably know, especially if you have younger kids, they have emotions every time we turn around, and they are completely in flow. They're angry and they rage and they express it. Whereas I have stifled it so much that I, just repress it. I say, no, it's not productive. It might hurt somebody. I have all these excuses for why anger is inappropriate. And anger is a tricky one, because usually we've learned to direct it at the stimulus, at each other. And so when we direct anger at any emotion it can be hurtful. So let's jump into this. And we're not going to get as much into the story, but really focus on the emotions, because that's really the first step and really the language that Brene's talking about in this book. And as far as our kids, again, they are just yearning for us to see their emotions, to mirror them, to validate them. So we're also going to go into that experience and that practice that tool. So as far as getting into our biology, I don't know if any of you have heard about a body scan, but it's a really important practice for me. For me, when I was in my reaction, when I was in a big emotion, when I was in embarrassment, shame, anger, I would basically just shut down and become this sort of drill master, taskmaster, thinking machine. And I didn't have access to really anything. And so the way that I came back to the present moment is that I started to tune into what's happening in my body. So let's try this just for a few minutes. And I'd like you each to, you can either close your eyes or not. And we're going to have two different sort of images. And then I'm going to ask you to tune into your body. Again, it helps me to close my eyes because I'm so outward focused. I'm so tuning into what's going on. What do I need to be? How do I need to do this? And instead, I want to tune inward, because this is where emotions and needs and the experience happens. Okay, so the first experience is imagine a time when you were triggered. It could be by your child saying no. It could be by a fear of something that might happen. It could be by your partner, a coworker, not showing up for a meeting, canceling at the last minute, whatever it is. Just imagine that scenario and then take a minute, tune inward. When that just happened, so for me, it was the FaceTime call coming in the middle of a meeting I had set up. And I felt this rush of heat. So what's happening for you when you imagine that triggering scenario, feeling a big emotion? Can you sense where is that emotion? Is it in your jaw getting tight? Is it affecting your stomach, maybe glitching, butterflies? Do your fists clench? Is it something about your shoulders getting tight? Some people, their throat starts to close. Some people feel a pressure on their chest. And often there's fast breathing. Again, these are all the things that if we needed to run away from a wolf, excellent. But for emotions, it happens, the exact same system happens. And it's telling us, I'm having a deep feeling, something matters. That's the connection. Okay, so now that you felt whatever you felt, maybe shake it off and just kind of smooth it out, because sometimes tension, if you're feeling a strong emotion, you just want to let it out, just bouncing or shaking, kind of clear it through you. Okay, on to the next one. So now imagine a time when you were having a wonderful day. Everything was going just as you'd hoped. You have friends, you're having a moment of just smiling, you feel abundant, your needs are met. Now tune in. Imagine that moment. Could have been on vacation, could be in nature, could be doing when your child did something really silly and fun. Okay, tune into your body now. What is your breath doing? What's happening in your throat or your jaw or your face muscles? Are you smiling? What's happening? Do you feel sort of a spaciousness as opposed to the tension that was earlier? So I'd love you to put in the chat what the example was. How did it change for you? What was surprising? What did you learn from doing this? And just, again, put in the chat and just, this is a super supportive tool about what can being aware of our body tell us about emotions. You can also raise your hand and speak up. And if we're all shy, we'll just keep going on to the next thing. I did see someone. Oh, great, thank you. Smiling and tingling sensation in a good way, feeling lighter. Yes, a sense of lightness. Yes, across your back, between your shoulder blades. Yeah, racing heart. Great, tightness. Yes. So I just want to invite you that this is such a wonderful tool, and it's also great to support your kids. They just say, hey, what's going on in your body right now? It's a great way for them to become aware, to learn this awareness and not lose it, not live from the head up. Okay, let's go on to the next. So the hard part is when we only have 3 emotions that we can be aware of when they're happening. And Brene says this is happy, sad, and mad, angry. And there are 87, she says, of experiences and emotions that when we have the language for them, when we slow down enough to tune into them, that then we have so much more of a rich vocabulary, a way of communicating, a way of being aware. And that's what the genius of this book is. There are also other tools, and I have a list that I'm going to show you, and I shared with you in the last email, of the common universal emotions and the needs that those often point to. So a good rule of thumb is when you're having a hard or uncomfortable or negative emotion, like anger, embarrassment, shame, then you probably have an unmet need. You have something's important and you don't feel connected to it. When things are happy, joyful, excited, then you have a met need. You're connected to the values and things that matter. So that's a good sort of, again, a compass to where am I? That's a great question to ask. So this is the example that we talked about in the infographic of just every day. This was something that I did with a friend. I texted once a day to each other and I said, what are you feeling? And it's a more informative question than how are you? Because that's kind of at this point a social pleasantry and almost a throwaway, and we all say fine. And so it doesn't really get us the granularity that Brene Brown's talking about. When I ask, what am I feeling? It really asks me to quiet and tune in and really answer honestly. What am I feeling? And for me in the beginning, when I started to do this, because I had so repressed and armored up, it was numb. I really couldn't feel much of anything. I was productive. I was effective. I was, again, a manager, a taskmaster. I was getting things done. And again, that's valuable. That's important as a mom. We are juggling so many balls, and Dad, as a parent. And yet when we want to connect, the armor keeps us from connecting. And so this example of what are you feeling allows us to just slow down, check in, do a body scan if that supports you. Am I feeling content? Am I feeling confused? Am I feeling uncertain? What am I feeling? Ashamed? That's a hard one because that usually takes us sort of into unconscious layers, but we're going to get to that in another webinar. So this is a key concept experiencing emotions to completion versus thinking about emotions. And it's probably it was new to me. And so experiencing emotions to completion is I experience the energy of the emotion in my body. I can recognize it. I can ask, what is your message for me about my values, about what matters? And then when I do that, when I take that time, it served its purpose, that energy can just flow out of me. The challenge is that we get stuck in our heads and we get into a cognitive emotional loop, and we just keep thinking about the emotion, and we try to fix it, or we try to rationalize it, or we try to make meaning about it. And those just are layers that we put on top of what the actual emotional energy is. And we can get stuck in that loop for years. Jill Bolte Taylor, who had another emotion research and actually had a stroke, and A Stroke of Insight is her book. And she said that emotions actually last from 6 to 90 seconds only. I'm gonna say that again. The energy of emotions lasts from 6 to 90 seconds only. So if we can get to the practice of purely feeling the emotion, the energy, this emotion to completion, without adding the why and the backstory and the story I'm telling myself, then it will just release. You can move it in your body, release it, and then you can move on. And kids do this a lot better than we do. Okay, so let's get on to the next, which is another example. And I don't know how to move our little, this over so you can see. So this is, we're going to have a chance to practice. And this is called life-saving listening. And it's not normal conversation back and forth. It is a way to be seen and heard. First, we're going to do it, or actually both times, but we're going to work with another adult. And this is rejuvenating. This is the practice I have done for 15 years, and there is nothing that has transformed my relationship with my family more than this. Taking even 5 minutes with another trusted adult to be real, raw and real, I say, is a gift. And so we're going to practice that in just a minute. When we do it, I'm going to break us out into small groups. And I'd love you to introduce yourself and just remind how many kids and where you live, and maybe, why you were interested in this. And then I'd love you to look at this list and just know from your own just life experience, there's no way to get this wrong. There's no way to get this right. We're so focused. That's such a lens that I put on, is I want to be right. I want to get the A. So just remove that lens as much as you're able and just explore what were emotions like in your family of origin? What was hard? What was easy? What was accepted? And just share what you're learning about emotions and how it developed for you. And so you'll each have 3 minutes. And again, it can be, so this is a different way of listening, and it's one at a time. So one person's going to go, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, and just speak and explore. And at times it can feel a little awkward because they're giving you their undivided attention, but it's also a gift. And so it's just a way of experiencing and exploring. And when I do this, I don't always know what's going to come out of my mouth. But it's, again, a chance to slow down and inquire. And it's, again, amazing thing. So I want to make sure, does anyone have any questions? I'm going to look at the chat. Okay, their internet is unstable, Erica, so we'll see how that works. Okay, thanks. If anyone has any questions, they can raise their hand. Otherwise, I'm going to go and put you in small groups. And let's see, that means there are, do this. And I'll go here, take one just a minute. And go right there. Okay. So have fun talking to each other, having another peer, another parent, and again, just explore what emotions were like for you as a child, what were hard, what are easy, and just how emotions are in your own home. And I'll give you a warning when it's time to come back. And if you can do it, I'll send you a little message when it's time to switch as well. And Susie, I don't know if you can because you have work. And hi, Celeste, do you want to join a room? I'm going to go ahead and put you. Let me see if I can. I don't know how to put you in a room. And I think you are driving, Celeste, so I don't know if you're able to.
No, it looked like her husband was driving.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know what, Tanya, can you go into room 1?
Yeah. Can you
Okay.
put me back in there?
Yes.
Oh, I'll move there. Or no.
Is it letting you go? Linda's all by herself. Let me see. Celeste, can you move into the breakout room? So welcome back. I'd love you to put in the chat how that was for you. Was it easier to be the speaker or the listener? And what came up about emotions that that you know, if there was anything new or that you'd like to speak about, you're certainly welcome to just speak. Selasi and I had a chat conversation because she's picking up kids and can't speak, but she had such wonderful things to say about what it was like in her family, which was very similar to my family, which is that emotions just weren't done. I asked my dad once, who's an engineer, and he said, emotions aren't logical, so we don't need to talk about them. and that this leaves us feeling really invalidated. And it's such a part of our human experience. But if we're shamed for having them, then it really, again, is what teaches us to live from the neck up and to put on armor. And so I learned this at a really young age. And she also brought up a great point that that we just get into taskmaster mode because there is a lot to get done. We do need to get the baths done. We need to get dinner done. We need to clean up dinner. So there is this sort of, they call it sort of the form of life. We do need to do those things. But if we don't take moments out of our day to stop and do these check-ins with each other, with ourselves, then we never get to this meaningful connection moment in our lives. And that's really hard. So the richness wasn't there for me until I started to really make time for emotions. And they are messy and they are scary. So that's why having groups like this is so supportive to sort of reclaim our own emotional flow so that then we can meet our children's emotional flow. So yes, first, for sure, feeling guilty about getting angry. And anger is a tough one. Anger said to me that, or is trying to tell us that something matters, something that we value tremendously, we're feeling separate from. And so we do feel guilty when we feel it if we direct it at our child. So the key is to feel anger at the ground or the sky, not at the stimulus, not at each other. So I'm angry. I'm really wanting to be seen. I'm really wanting understanding. I'm really wanting partnership. If you go to this bottom part of the needs, if we can start speaking in this language, if we can bring this language from Brene Brown's book and this list into our homes, it can transform our lives. So any other questions or yeah buts or more that you want to share before we go to the next? I know we don't need to be. Okay, we'll go on to the next. So again, this is all about what we yearn for. All I wanted was meaningful connection with my kids. But what would happen is it would be right before dinner, and I would be trying to get dinner on the table and I'd be distracted. I'd be thinking about something about work, and they would be there, playing around. But what they really yearned for was meaningful connection. But I was up in my head in my taskmaster mode. And so I called myself Tilly the taskmaster. I would get into this, like, you do that, and pick up that, and you set the table. And, it wasn't relating. It wasn't meaningful connection. And so what Brene Brown and what my work is trying to encourage parents is that we can do both. We can learn to do both. We give ourselves a gesture of support, and we realize we connect with ourselves, this grounded confidence, and using the language of emotion, using a body scan, tuning into what matters, our needs. Then we can share that with our kids, and we can then meet our kids there. So this is, again, priceless work, and it takes time, and it takes encouragement, and it takes a community to really support ourselves getting there. I love her statement that it's not fear that gets in the way of courage, it's armor. It's how we self-protect. So that's, again, another webinar that I had planned for 2022 about our armor and how to let it off. So what we're going to talk next about is more about how do we get to this place of grounded confidence, that place of self-connection that we all really want, because from there is where we can connect with our kids. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to do another exercise using the same sort of feelings and needs. And this is slightly different. It's the same concept of life-saving listening, of walking alongside your child. The second one of Brene Brown and the important skills for meaningful connection. And it's a way of doing this with no judgment, with no fixing, with no advice giving. And we can do it as we just did with another adult. That's to fill our tank. That's for us to be seen and heard. It's to work through stress. It's to work through hard emotions like sadness or anger when we're triggered. This is going to be sort of one-sided. It's me being an empty, loving container to be able to hear my children. I don't have that mask of a taskmaster on during this. Instead, I have this, I want to hear you. I want to see you. I want to know what's on your heart. I want to create a safe place for you to be raw and real. And this is not easy. My parents never did this for me. They didn't know how. Their parents didn't teach them. So we're really trying to break multi-generational old protective patterns of armor and instead open and be courageous and trust and create this, again, safe, messy, uncomfortable place of hearing our kids' emotions. This is such a gift. When I do this for my daughters, it changed everything. They were so used to me showing up as someone who would fix, minimize, repress, talk them out of their own emotions because they were so painful for me. So when I did my work so that I could hear my own emotions, I was able to hear theirs. And that was what changed everything. So this idea of walking alongside our child instead of having them be a piece of the puzzle that we just move around the house and move to school and move to the doctor and move to it. Instead, we're having a relationship, and we're doing this through the language of emotions. So in this example, we're going to go back to breakout rooms, and I'd love you to, again, use this list, and I'm going to send it to you after. It's also in, again, the email you got this morning. And what, when your children express, is hard for you. So for me, it was loneliness. It was pretty much any time they were in pain, because I thought my job as a mom was to fix them, was to get rid of their pain. And Brene Brown says, no, our job is to hold their hand while they experience their own pain, because otherwise we're breaking their cycle, their emotion to completion cycle. And when we stop them from feeling, we stop them from tuning into their heart, and we stop them with the biological, connection that tunes them into their needs, to what matters. And we don't want to break that connection. But I did a whole bunch. So again, it's give ourselves a big break, no inner critic. This is trying to learn new ways of being. We're trying to cultivate new ways of accepting and holding space for uncomfortable emotion. And this is hard work. So give ourselves a big break. So when you go into the breakout room, I'd love you to just, what is the emotion that when my child feels it's challenging? You can even think of a specific example that happened recently. And then I'd love you to role play and imagine the other parent being your child, and you practice what validation sounds like. Because as Solacey and I talked about in the chat, this is a new skill. This is when I learned to say, oh, that makes sense, instead of doing my old patterns of criticizing them or rationalizing or fixing or numbing or shaming. It's just hold space for them to be where they are so that they can connect to what matters. So the validation sounds like, oh, it makes sense you felt lonely. Oh yeah, tell me more. So it's just affirming in any words that make sense to you. Oh yes, I understand why you're feeling that way. Tell me more. So it's a great way to just meet them and let them be, let them experience, and you're a safe container. So I called it empty container listening when I first started this, because for me, I had to literally shut my mouth, because those old patterns really wanted to jump in. It was so hard for me not to minimize, fix, distract, rationalize. So if this is true for you, when they're speaking, just try to zip it. And then again, just have that one phrase in your head of, oh, that sounds hard. It makes sense you're feeling that way. Tell me more. Ready to try it? So I'm going to have you get back into your same groups. You're going to have an additional minute, and group with just two, you will just get a little bit of extra time between the two of you. So up to you. Okay, let me go up here. I'm going to, okay, welcome back, everyone. I'd love to hear, and again, feel free to keep your mics on, and just how was that for you? What was surprising? Any learning? How did it go with validation? And just shout out, feel free just to put your voice in the room. We'd love to hear from you, because we're a chance to practice being raw and real.
We didn't actually do the role play, but we did kind of talk about personal situations where we felt the validation. It was important to do that and listen. And I was saying, I'm not a fan of tell me more. To me, that feels contrived, but to say the whole, like, oh wow, that's something. What happened? And trying to find other ways to get them to tell you more.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Virginia. Yeah. It's just how to be with them in whatever words that is. And sometimes it's just our presence, just our eye contact and our attention, because too often we're doing 5 things at once, or we're on our phones, and just really giving our attention is a gift to our kids. So yeah. Anyone else want to say what they were surprised by? What emotion was the hardest? Selassie and I had another good chat conversation of just when our kids fight, that is just like nails on a chalkboard. And I have all these messages of I'm supposed to be in control. I'm supposed to know how to handle this, and no one prepares us. So it's, and we get flooded with just stop, and we just want control. So for me, it's work with my own reaction and acknowledge and name. This is hard. This is, I'm not sure what to do, but I know we're not getting our needs met, and you guys aren't having, a good time. So for me, the big thing is what's underneath. Why are they acting the way they're acting? They usually have a big feeling and an unmet need. So can I be a detective in that moment and figure out what's going on for them? And have this list around on the fridge or whatever, and just start guessing. Hey, are you feeling bored? Are you unhappy? Are you frustrated? Are you wanting power in your world? Are you wanting fairness? Are you wanting partnership, agency? Some of these words are a little bit higher end, so you can just bring it down to whatever age your children are at. But it's really just, how to really give them language for their inner experience, because if they could do better, they would do better. They don't act out for no reason. There's an unmet need. So too often we think it's defiance, willful, we put labels on it, and that just makes it us and them. And what we want to do is come alongside and say, we're in this together. It's us against the problem. It's us against the unmet need. Let's figure this out. And acknowledging it, naming it is the first step. And so this gives you language to do that. So I've taken you a little over time, so I just want to ask, are there any questions? And then I want to just let you know there's an opportunity to get more community. And so I just want to let you know what I do. Again, this is a total non-obligation, but I'm so excited about it because it is the community of parents that I wish I had had when I was struggling and battling with my strong-willed child, and with these emotions that I didn't know how to feel to completion, that I didn't know how to get to the unmet needs. And again, this work has changed my life. I'm absolutely passionate about stopping these generational old patterns of repressing, distracting, minimizing, shaming, because I wish my parents had known these skills. And so I want to teach as many parents out there, because we can change the world. We can definitely change our own hard family dynamics, and it's possible. I just have this message of hope and excitement because it's possible. So the community, we have webinars like this. There are tips and tools and encouragement from other parents being raw and real, trying to live wholehearted lives, trying to give that to their kids. And there's a special offer if you can sign up by this Friday. So again, not the hard sell, because I'm not in sales, but I do believe in this work. Brene Brown believes in this work, and it's not easy to do alone. And this life-saving listening with both adults and then teaching it to our kids is absolutely game-changing. So we do that every month as well. And if you want private coaching, you can also look into that. So any questions, any last thoughts that you'd like to put in the room, either vocalize, or I just really appreciate your time. I know, especially in December, it's valuable, and I really honor that. And you also will be able to opt into the one in January if you don't want to do the whole membership, for just the webinar January 12th about taming our triggers, and especially around our kids trigger us, which is often. So anything else, Linda, Virginia, Erica, before we close?
I wanted to say thank you so much. This was great. Appreciate it, Allison.
Wonderful, wonderful. And if you do want to put your name, if you are interested in the membership, we'll send you additional information about it. And I'd just be curious to know whether it's something that you'd even consider, why or why not. So I'll give you just a minute to kind of either put that in the chat. You can also send me an email in response to the emails you've received. And again, I just want to open the communication and just let you know you're not alone. and that there's hope to having better relationships with our kids and our own emotions, our own inner world. So give you just a minute to do that.
Thank you. I'm going to sign off, but I really appreciate it. And I really enjoyed the conversations. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susie. Thank you all, and wonderful to meet you, and hope to see you again in some way if that is right for you. So thank you, Virginia and Erica and Linda and Tanya. Have a great
Thank
rest of
you.
the day.
Bye.
Bye.